Good afternoon, my people. So today I have a guest, and be ready and be attentive to listen to our guest. He has a good message for you.
To any government is not this generation, but generations which are yet to be born. And of course, this generation is also critical because any society that does not pay regard to her young men and women is a society adrift and a giant headed to the rocks. And that is where we now find ourselves because these individuals also say we are leaderless, we are tribeless. And one of the things that is important now is that we must have a structured engagement with government. And that government must be a government that is prepared to deliver on time-bound promises. Time is of the essence in this arrangement. Otherwise, history has demonstrated that if you don't take care of this kind of engagement, remember, this is not the first time that we have had agitation from young people. History is replete. In the 1908, we remember how the Turkish administration was overthrown, gave birth to the famous English saying, Young Turks, in 1908. We remember the agitation that took place in Europe during the rise, the student movement. We remember what took place in South Africa with the Soweto massacres. You remember what took place in China during the Tiananmen Square in 1980s, what took place in South Korea in 1980s, what took place during the Arab Spring in our very lifetime. And you can see that the agitation from it, Malawians take a cue from it. So it is a message that there is some restlessness amongst young people because the economies are not performing for them. There's some restlessness because they are not benefiting from the dividends of government, but they can see a small percentage of individuals enjoying and swimming in largesse, and that they cannot tolerate, and that must stop. And if it doesn't stop, it will be checked. You see, every agitation, every protest must have an end game. What is the end game? This is the first question that we must ask ourselves. Is the end game to have all the demands met? And if the end game is to have all the demands met, is there saying, and what I hear them saying through the various platforms is that if there is going to be engagement, we don't want an engagement amongst the political players in any event. These political players who are pretending to engage on our behalf, most of them have been in the political arena for the last 30 years. At one time, they're on the same side. At another time, they're on separate sides. And we know what they have been doing. They only do that which is in their best interest to the exclusion of all else. If you want to engage with us. It is us who have raised these issues. And it is us, therefore, whom you must engage. And I hope that the administration of President William Ruto will make every effort to engage these who simply want to take advantage, opportunistic and selfish, navel-gazing politicians who simply want to benefit for purposes of occupying public office must be shut out so that the young men have the country repaired in a constructive way. Although, of course, somebody may ask, but they have said they are leaderless. They have said that they are tribeless. Who do you engage? I believe that their leadership is beginning to emerge. If you watch very keenly, there are young men and women who are now beginning to articulate their position through public media. And if time is taken, it is these individuals who will then be the vanguard with whom to engage in the short term. Let us remind ourselves that youth is not a permanent state. Those who are young today will be old in a few years' times. And we must also remember that there is not a society that does not have different segments. We have old people whom I believe have the opportunity and the experience to make contribution to their society. They are the younger people who holding all factors constant, will live for a little longer, and they are simply saying, create a society which is going to enable everybody to thrive in the short, medium, and long time. What characteristics do you expect of such individuals? They must be patriots. They must be young men and women who know and understand the dynamics of the purpose of politics, the whole idea of politics and themselves, and to use their talent, intellectual and otherwise, for the benefit of agriculture. So they must be knowledgeable. They must be individuals who are prepared to sacrifice and to use their talent for the general good. In a multi-ethnic society such as ours, there must be people who are capable of looking and exploiting talent without looking at the ethnic extraction or the racial extraction of their compatriots. And they must be people who understand that leadership is not about using office for personal benefit, but for the general good. These are the characteristics that we expect of these young men and women who, in the fullness of time, as they grow older, will also hand over the baton to another generation. One of the things that I think annoys young Kenyans, and by extension young Africans, are individuals who, when they get into political office, do not want to leave. At age 70, they still want to be youth leaders. At age 80, they still want to claim to be youth leaders. They do not want to give opportunity for younger people to serve their countries. And this, I think, is something that must stop. Individuals who have been with us here since the 1980s in the political class had better do the right thing. Simply get out. Get out so that they can serve as advisors. They must not, in the nature of public office. And there is no shortage of them in Kenya and in Africa. And the youth are saying, no, your time is up. I hope so. I hope that young people now see the value. Who do you vote into office? In the recent past, in Kenya and in most of Africa, people have gotten into office because they were voted by their tribesmen and because young people did not care to vote because they thought they had nobody to vote for and nothing to vote for. With the consequence, therefore, that we have ethnic bigots in office, with the consequence that we have individuals who ought not to be in office running the affairs of the country. And we are now recognizing that that is a trend that must not be allowed. My hope is, as long as we continue to use the ballot, that young people have now recognized that if they want to change things through the ballot, they must, number one, have the voting card. Number two, they must wake up to vote. Number three, they must protect their vote. In the last general elections held in the Republic of Kenya, we know that nearly 8 million people did not vote. If they had come out and voted, perhaps we would have a different dispensation. So I hope that message is going out loudly and clearly to the young Kenyans and by extension young Africans. As long as the medium of getting political leadership is the ballot, it is important that you become an individual who is in civic engagement. Politics must no longer be understood in the manner in which it has been understood. Things are changing dramatically and in a very dynamic manner. We have a generation almost throughout the world who are not prepared to wait. They want what I call microwave solutions, instantaneous solutions. They can no longer afford the luxury of waiting. But let us look at it in the context of history. I think it is a British politician Winston Churchill, who once said that a democracy is perhaps one of the worst forms of government until you look at the other forms of government. If it is therefore understood in that context, the reason why people are agitated is because year in, year out to mean every election cycle, they see men and women parading themselves and making promises which are not delivered. And they are saying, for how long shall we wait? Shall we wait for Godot to come to deliver us? We see them get into office as paupers, some of them. Within 2 years, they have become multimillionaires, donating and distributing money as if it was confetti. We cannot wait. And this impatience is what is informing invested in you telling us that we have voted you for 5 years. We have voted you for 7 years. We want delivery. And what this is going to do is going to create a new generation of patriots who will join politics. What has happened, particularly in Africa in the last 30 years, is that politics had become attractive for the wrong reasons. People were attracted to politics because it was the shortest avenue to material wealth without consequence. But if this agitation continues, then that class and that category will join the political arena. And that, I think, is something that is desirable. So that if you go into politics, you know it is going to politics and into office to serve. And that will happen sooner rather than later, because you'll then know that being in political office is not being in a comfort zone. It is being in a dangerous zone where if you don't deliver, we'll literally chop off your heads. And this happened throughout history. If you look at the history of Europe, look at the history of Latin America, look at the history of Asia, look at the history of Africa. If you did not deliver in those days, we chopped off your head. If you built a bridge and we wanted to test whether the bridge was worthy, it is you who built it who would cross it first. These are things that are going to happen, and this impatience is going to give birth to a different political dispensation.